Model, it's a model. Interesting words. Yes. Well, it's great to see you go back and look at some things. I better listen to the words.
For those of you who have watched the meetings, we kind of go through this, we have to get Wayne set up, and then we kind of start when Wayne gives us the signal.
You're started.
We started. Relax. So again, welcome very much. Welcome to the Wednesday, May 26th, regular meeting of the Cicero County Board. For those of you who are in the building here, obviously, you know the access are on back. Please use them in the unlikely event that we need them. For those of you who are watching from home, I'd like to tell you who else is here besides the board members. We have Tracy Cosselman, Steve Copio, Gretchen Walter, Steve Ricano, Robert Jermaine, Nicole Walsh, Kate Fiorella, Lisa Roth, Michael Johans, and Wayne Freeman. So let's the folks now. Tracy, you all set? Call the roll. Okay, call the roll.
Here. Councilor Carr.
Here.
Councilor White. Here. Councilor
Here.
and Supervisor Meyer.
Here. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing to recognize the many men and women serving in the U.S. military around the world who are protecting our nation and our way of life. Unfortunately, COVID is preventing us from properly celebrating Memorial Day again this year. So let us remember to take a moment this weekend to pause in each one of us in our own way. Remember all the men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice to protect our country. Thank you. Okay, number 2 on the agenda, Nancy.
Approval of abstracts. Resolved, the Cicero Town Board approves abstract numbers 19 dated 5/12/2021 and 20 dated 5/19/2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, budget modifications, Nancy, again.
Resolved, the budget modifications are approved as presented.
Second, Mr. Wakey. Call the roll.
Call the roll on
We
abstract.
did it as unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Councilor White. Yes. Councilor Carr.
Yes.
Councilor.
Yes.
Councilor.
Aye.
Supervisor Meyer.
yes, I just adopted. Next item on the agenda, number 4. Do we have any folks from the applicant who would like to address the board? Okay, hearing on the resolution is approve a zone change for the Horner Farmstead tax map 0870121.2 on Lake Shore Road. Whereas the applicant has requested a zone change from agricultural to R12 on the property. And whereas the Cicero Planning Board considered the application did not recommend zone change. And whereas the Cicero Planning Board completed a secret review of the application and determined that it would have a positive impact on the environment. Now therefore, the Cicero Town Board adopts resolution approving the Horner Farmstead zone change. Tax map 0870121.2 on no number Lake Shore Road from agricultural to R12 residential district as proposed by local law number 3 of 2021, effective filing with the New York State Secretary of State. Do I have a second? Okay, second call. Do I have a second? Okay, number 4 fails due to lack of a second. Next item on the agenda, approve hiring of seasonal staff members for the Parks Department, whereas the Parks and Recreation Department is a need to fulfill part-time seasonal positions. Now therefore resolved as the town board approves the following employees attached. I think Teresa.
You approved a lot at last month's meeting, but these are our final seasonal employees for mainly our summer camp program. These are our new hires. You had already approved the returning staff.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. McConnell, discussion from the board. Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Counselor White? Yes. Counselor Carr?
Yes.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Counselor Pipitalo?
I'm pretty excited for the stand-up paddle boarding. That looks fun.
Supervisor Meyer?
Yes, items adopted. Number 6, award bids for phase 2 of senior center renovation project and authorize the execution of the related documents. Whereas the town has approval. The town was approved for an Andog County Community Development Grant to make various enhancements to the senior center. And whereas the Parks and Recreation Department solicited formal bids for this project, and whereas McGinnis Nelson Construction Incorporated was the low and only bidder, now therefore be resolved, the town board awards the senior center renovation project to McGinnis Nelson Construction Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $58,000, and that the town supervisor is authorized to execute all related documents. That's budget code A677248 and A677248CD.
Second.
Second, Mrs. White. Discussion on the item. Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor White? Yes. Counselor Carr?
Yes.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Aye.
Meyer?
Yes, item is adopted. Thank you. Mike, number 7.
Board declares the following item from the zoning department as surplus. Resolved, the town board declares the old HP printer in the zoning department as surplus and of no further use to the town and to be properly disposed of. Should we have the numbers of that printer for this resolution?
We don't have.
Okay.
Second.
Second, Mrs. White. Discussion on number 7. Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor White? Yes. Counselor
Yes.
Yes.
Pipitalo?
Aye.
Supervisor Meyer?
Yes, item is adopted. Number 8, Jonathan.
Restoration of lost retirement benefits and payment. Whereas the town of Cicero originally appointed Officer Michael Aragano, a police officer for the town, effective July 31st, 2000, by resolution of the board moved in July 24th, 2000, according to the Department of Criminal Justice Services Registry. Officer Aragano's hire date was July 31st, 2000, and whereas immediately upon appointment, Officer Aragano attended accredited police academy, but was not compensated by the town for this time, nor did he receive applicable retirement credit, and whereas other officers before and after Officer Aragano were compensated by the town for the academy time and received corresponding retirement system credit and payment calculated using the date of hire, and whereas on January 22nd, 2020, this board resolved to correct the town employment policy with regard to payment of accrued salary time to police officers to commence with actual date of hire, and further agree to retroactively restore the officer's lost salary, and whereas by the same resolution, this board formally supported the application of Officer Aragano for the New York State retirement system by seeking approximately 6 months of lost service credit at the time he was first considered an employee of the town, July 31st, 2000, to the date Officer Aragano later began accruing New York State retirement benefits, December 31st, 2000, and whereas in order to restore the officer's lost service credit to the New York State retirement system, the New York State legislature is considering adoption of Bill A07792, a copy of which has been supplied to the town to restore the retirement credit lost from the date of hire pursuant to Section 384D of the Retirement and Social Security Law, and whereas Bill A07792 estimates the approximate cost of the town to restore the officer's lost retirement service credit will be approximately $24,300 if payment is made on February 1st, 2022. I'm correcting that. It's 2022, not 2021 in the bill. And whereas the officer has agreed to share the town's financial liability by paying half of the necessary costs, we now therefore move the adoption of a resolution restoring the officer's lost retirement service credit upon passage of the bill A07792 by the state legislature. This resolution also authorizes the one-time payment into the state system pursuant to the bill by the town in an amount not to exceed $12,150 and the acceptance of funds from Officer Aragano in the amount of approximately $12,150 $150 to also be paid to the state retirement system in accordance with section 384D of the Retirement and Social Security Law. There will be no annual contributions to the town, or no annual contribution expenses to the town of Cicero. This resolution also authorizes the supervisor and comptroller to execute any necessary documents to complete this action.
I'll second.
Second is Moinkey, discussion.
For clarification purposes, once again, these funds are not being paid to the office, they're being paid to the state system. It's part of the change from section 375 of that law, which is for part-time officers, section 384D, which is for full-time officers.
I have a number of comments. I'm going to focus on Assembly Bill A 07792 and Senate S 07022 in home rule. This is not a personal comment. Many people tell me that Mr. Aragano is a fine gentleman, and I'm sure that's true. I'm trying to focus on the facts of the case and the law of the state of New York. The minutes from Monday, July 24th, 2020. The resolution was conditional. Police officer appointment Mike Aragano, and it goes on, Mr. Aragano will not be provided compensation while attending the academy. However, the town is obligated to provide workers' compensation. Now, as you know, some people feel that if someone has workers' compensation coverage, that makes them an employee. Frankly, they thought it doesn't work. And a great example of that is the South Bay Fire Department folks who work with the South Bay Fire Department to provide workers' compensation, but that does not make them employee. The next part is the minutes from Wednesday, February 10th, 2010. And that goes on a number of points. I'll have to get those in there. The important part of this is not just the resolution, but the backup, the reasoning that was very clearly stated by the board members at that time. And I read in part. He finished the police academy, which sometime in December, and at which time he became a town of Cicero officer. And that's an important thing. He completed it, and then at which time he became an officer and an employee of the town, which means he wasn't prior to that. Although he was not compensated, that is the date that he did go into the academy. That is the rationale for doing it. It is not going to cost the town anything. He is not looking for any compensation, and this is part of the minutes from July 20th, which he was appointed. He will go to the county and try to change the date. That's important because that's a recognition from the town board that they do not control the personnel records. They do not control personnel rules. Those are done by personnel and state retirement. So, then the vote was motion carried, motion made by Mr. Coyle, second by Mr. Jennings, that we approve the police officer date of hire to the town of Cicero, July 31st, 2000, for a matter to be referred to the county for their consideration. Again, another acknowledgement that the town of Cicero does not have the power to do these things. You have to go through the proper procedure with any transfer, any add, any delete of any personnel. Okay, then we go on to June 22nd, 2010. And there was correspondence going back and forth between Onondaga County personnel and the folks here doing HR work. And as said in part, Mr. Aragon was not an employee of the town of Cicero during the time, regardless of the fact he had entered into the police academy. Mr. Aragon received no pay or benefits, and nor was any paperwork submitted pointing him to a position. A few days later, June 25th, on investigating the matter, and in particular, they're talking about conditional appointments beginning on July 31st, 2000. Although civil service has no conditional appointments, we're deeming this to be the equivalent of a temporary appointment. We will therefore add the period from July 31st through October 29th. is a temporary appointment. Please note, as he was not paid or otherwise compensated during this period, it will not count towards New York State retirement. And under civil service rules, temporary appointments are not covered, and therefore this would not change seniority date under section 75 of the civil service law. Okay, moving on to home rule request. Okay, this is an item from New York State. And it asks for reasons or explanation why you're doing a home rule. It is hereby declared that a necessity exists for the enactment of such legislation, and that the facts establish such necessity are as follows. Check out, the local government does not have the power to enact such legislation by local law. Again, another example that's been out there that shows that the town of Cicero can make recommendations, they can make suggestions. But it's the personnel throughout the county that does the approval or disapproval of all personnel items. Okay, then I get to Assembly Bill 07792 and Senate corresponding S07022. I have to tell you, it's a great example of creative writing. It's very good in including some things and then obviously very directly omitting other items. But it says in part, all past service costs incurred in implementing the provisions of this act shall be borne by the town system. Officer Aragano was not compensated for the training he received at the academy during the time which he was enrolled. Next, this bill would not be consistent with the New York State and local retirement system policy of granting service credit only when a salary has been paid. If this bill is enacted during the 2021 legislative session, there will be an immediate past service cost of approximately $24,300, which will be borne by the town system. I point out the creative writing because it does not mention that under county personnel and state retirement system both decline the application. That's why it requires special legislation. Repeatedly, when it was initially done and when it was reviewed a number of years later, there was distinct wording that it was going to be no cost to the town. Repeatedly, no cost to the town, which obviously has not turned out to be true. My colleagues decided a while ago, I believe it was 2 months ago now, to attempt to address one of the facts of no compensation, and they issued a payment of approximately $9,350 dollars. But then there's a second part, which is the requirement for $24,000. The town board clearly, repeatedly said that they were going under the impression that the actions taken back in 2000 was not a cost item. Obviously, it has turned out to be a cost item. So based on that, I do not feel it's appropriate to have this resolution. Again, this is not an item that the town of Cicero has any power over. It's a recommendation, a suggestion to the state of New York, because since it has been rejected by county personnel, it's been rejected by the state retirement system, it requires state legislation. That's what I have for this at this moment.
All right. Well, I'll need a retort. I'm going to do this, so something to avoid. Let's talk about it. First of all, I note that this is a state bill. So all the discussion about the fact the county said this, the county said that, or the town board doesn't have the authority really is irrelevant, because the highest authority in this state is going to be taking this action. If this happens, it will be voted on by the New York State Assembly, the New York State Senate, and signed by Governor Cuomo. So really, when we start talking about the county said no, the town doesn't have the power, the town board said such and such and such and such a date, none of that really matters. Because first of all, not every, really this should be obvious by now, but as an attorney, I can definitely tell you it's true, not every law accurately fits every set of facts. Not every government bureaucracy handles every set of facts necessarily the way that it should, or consistent with the law, or consistent with fairness and common sense. So, with respect to and I can't address everything Supervisor Meyer said, but I think I need to. You know, there's no comparison between volunteer firefighters and police officers. I don't yet, I guess that's true that volunteer firefighters get workers' comp and they're not, you know, employees, but I don't see how that's relevant. Police officer is an employee. You know, DCJS, which is the regulatory agency for police officers in the state of New York, this officer Aragano's date of hire is July 31st, 2000. Certainly we could try to gloss over that, but that's true and that's significant. You know, board discussions from meetings are not really relevant. Board discussions are not resolutions. Board discussions are not findings. Board discussions are not legally effective. We can say a lot of things up there. Some of us have said things that are inaccurate. Some of us have offered personal opinions. They have no legal effect. You know, it's true that he wasn't paid, but we corrected that. We corrected it by applying a policy that fairly compensated this officer retroactively for time that other people were compensated for. And if it's done retroactively, that means that legally it's the same as if he was paid at the time. So to say, you know, to repeatedly, you know, reference the fact that this board meeting said he wasn't going to be paid, this board meeting said he wasn't paid, this letter said he wasn't paid, is irrelevant because on January 22nd, 2020, which was not a few months ago, in fact, it was what, 15 months ago, 16 months ago, we did pay him retroactively, which means that he was paid as far as the law is concerned at the time he attended the academy. So, you know, that was not a few months ago. With respect to whether or not it's personal, you know, I don't know what's in Supervisor Meyer's heart. I really don't know that. I would like to think it's not personal. I would just note, you know, that the resolution on January 2nd, 2020 directed the supervisor to write a letter to the state retirement system supporting the resolution the town board passed. Some of you may recall that a few months later, we passed a resolution noting that that didn't happen because Supervisor Meyer's letter did the exact opposite. Supervisor Meyer's letter argued and provided what the same evidence really that he's providing tonight, why he didn't think it should happen. So basically, despite the fact that the town board voted 4-1 to do something and to direct him to do something, he pretty much did the opposite. So it may not be personal. It may be personal. I don't know. Because again, you don't know what's in someone else's heart. It's kind of hard to believe that it's not in light of that letter, which frankly was a little shocking when I read it. You know, the bottom line is, no matter what the town has the authority to do, or what the county has the authority to do, the state has the authority to do this. It appears the state is willing to do it, that all we need to do is vote by a supermajority, which means 4 votes in this case, to do it. And, you know, it goes to the Assembly and the Senate, and certainly our state representatives can do their job and consider it, either vote for it or not vote for it, advance it out of committee or not advance it out of committee. Certainly Governor Cuomo can do what he wants to do. So, you know, this is about fairness. This is about the fact that, you know, this was what was done at the time was not fair, considering the fact this officer is not treated the same as other people. And another note, you know, again, what was said and what was discussed about cost, not really relevant because none of that was legal finding or legal act. But I will say this, if this officer gets his credit and retires sooner, it's going to be cheaper for the town of Cicero because he is going to be replaced with a police officer that is going to be paid a significantly lower salary. So really, this is despite the fact that there is a cost to the town, which is only, you know, a maximum of $12,150 because the officer is going to kick in half the cost, we're going to save money. So we're going to come out of this on top. So certainly from a cost perspective, I don't see how it's justified. This is about fairness. It's not about cost, but again, if it is, that's in favor of the taxpayers. You know, what's happening here is completely consistent with the state law, with the state's power to enact a home rule bill. I understand Supervisor Meyer's position. You know, I understand the arguments. The bottom line is they're irrelevant. The state has the power to do this, and that's what we're here about. So, you know, at this point, Mr. Jermaine, can I call the question?
I believe I still have an opportunity to discuss this.
Sure.
I'm not debating the point that the state has the authority to do it. What I'm trying to say is the points that you brought up, Ken, as far as having an opportunity to review, that's what was done. The county had an opportunity to go back to the town and say, what is going on? What did you intend? Give me the documentation, and they were not convinced. The state retirement people, and again, same opportunity to go through the documents, look at how the documents were in compliance with the law or not, and they came up with the same conclusion, that it wasn't in compliance. The state, Assembly and Senate, if they want to do it, that's fine. I'm not debating that. I'm just saying, if you go by the way everybody else has to go through the system, he was out of compliance. When I went through Albany, he was not in compliance. If Albany and the governor wanted to do this, that's fine. It's, I believe it's one of, Mr. Millet's old saying, for those of you who have been around here for a while, you remember Mr. Millet. He had a phrase, he said, special rules for special people. Okay? And I'm trying to have a situation where the people who are in this building, who are following the rules, the same personnel, everybody gets the same opportunity to go by the rules. And then if there's any, I'm going to call extenuating circumstances, they get the opportunity to have it go through county personnel. The same thing through the state retirement people. And then they make the final decision. It's not the council's role.
Well, let me just respond to that if you have anything to say. You mind if I heard you opening your mouth, so.
John, can I say something before you ask? It's off the topic completely. Tonight has been awesome. This has been great. The gavel's been great. The back and forth has been great. I just want to say it's awesome to do that. Continue.
Thanks. Well, you know, I don't know, I certainly know that the state retirement system did what they did. They didn't want to recognize the fact that he was paid for this. Maybe that's to do with the letter that you wrote, Mr. Meyer, basically asking him not to, despite what the board told her to do. You know, and I don't know if one like the county, again, it doesn't matter. As I said, not every bureaucracy appropriately applies the rules to every situation. Not every law and set of regulations and rules, you know, is capable of fitting in every situation. And as far as special rules for special people, which, I mean, that's not kind of personal, you know, if any other employee of this town, you know, who's in the same situation as this individual, police officer or not, union member or not, CSEA, whatever, Teamster, whatever, and they have been treated unfairly, treated differently from other people that were similarly situated, I would want to do the same thing, you know, because, you know, people should be treated fairly. I think they have a right to be treated fairly. And again, once again, the net cost to the taxpayers is negative, not positive. This saves taxpayer money. I just, you know, I see no downside to it. Again, it's about fairness. I would do the same for anybody who is in a similar situation.
All I wanted to say was, we're talking about fairness. A lot of different situations within a town. There's always good conversation, and it should be on the specific subject and not directed towards the person and the reason. And in my opinion, I am agreeing with Mr. Carp that everybody, it seems like everyone has this opinion or the idea that someone controls you and what you do and what you say. And if it's not the first level, it's the second level, the third level. All said and done, whatever the vote is, which is the proper level, is the way to go. And I agree, we're saving money. I really feel that we have exhausted this, and I'd like to call the question.
I think it's a matter of debate about saving money, because there are also going to be other costs that go along with a ex-employee. The health insurance is substantial. The cost of training a new person in any position is substantial. And frankly, we have a very strong, I'm going to call it challenge, opportunity, problem, how you look at it, with the entire employee benefits in the town of Cicero and other places too. We've addressed some of those issues, but the fact is, we have an outstanding liability for retired health coverage. The miracle of medicine is great, and that people are living longer. It also means that our health insurance is going up. And we have, last number I had for 10 years ago was at least a $6 million obligation out there that is not going to go away real quick. It's going to have an impact on it, and we're all going to have to be cognizant of that, because it's a growing cost. It's not going to have an impact on the credit rate immediately, but the credit people look at it and say, what are you doing about it? And, you know, we've been adding benefits. We've been adding people. So as long as you keep adding people and adding benefits, that obligation is going to get grow and grow and grow. So this is just the tip of the iceberg on this situation, and I do hope that the board starts addressing it, because pretty soon that the $6 million obligation is going to be substantially higher, and the taxpayer is going to ultimately pay the bill.
I'd like to just reflect on the part in regards to insurance benefits and so on. When in 2010, when I was in office, the contract for the police department was up, their union contract. And it has been 10 years off and on to come to a reasonable contract, which has been put into place. Benefits were addressed, retirement was addressed. The unfortunate situation was that there was retro pay because of the lack of being able to put together, on both sides, a good contract, and we have one now. So we all know our insurance is going up, mine has gone up. It's the way society is. And we obviously need to complete and do the services to our town. The town knows that they have to pay for those services. Without them, you would be controlled by the county. So think about that. Look at your first line on your bill, your tax bill. That's your county. See what you're paying your county, and then wonder what it is you get for that. And then look at the next two, town and highway. So I think we beat this horse to that.
The big line on county bills is pay for one item, and that's called Medicaid.
That's insurance.
It's a federal program that unfortunately our folks in Albany have decided, unlike other states where it's part of the state income tax, state budget, New York, they pass that down to the counties, and that means for the most part, county tax. So again, that tax bill is for one item on the budget.
And I guess I'll add one thing on this, like you said, because I think that we are beating this to death and it's getting off topic. With regard to the legacy costs, I am proud to announce from talking to emails with our comptroller that pursuant to the new contract that I was proud to negotiate and we signed recently, we're moving our first retired officer who's over 65 to Medicare Advantage plan, which for that officer and his spouse will save the town $8,600 a year. When you look at the fact that we'll have officers retiring and officers going on, that the cost savings are significant. Again, as we said at the meeting where we approved the contract, our prior comptroller estimated that if the current officers all lived to be 85, the savings for them alone would be over $1 million. So we are working on addressing those costs. It is an ongoing challenge that will continue for as long as there's private insurance in this country, frankly, an ongoing challenge.
I hope you heard that number. Jennifer was right. $86,000. One person.
8,600 per year.
8,600
Per
per year.
Savings.
Yeah,
Savings.
You get the idea of what the cost is. That's not the cost, that's the savings. So
We do what we can.
right, so we're working on a very, very large number. So if there's any further discussion, I hear any further discussion.
I'm good.
Clerk, we'll call the roll.
Counselor Blaney,
Yes.
Counselor Carr,
Yes.
Counselor White,
Yes.
Counselor Bacala,
Aye.
Supervisor Meyer.
No, item is that. Okay, next item, number 9, informational meeting, informational item. I see a gentleman here for, I'm going to mispronounce the name, Scotland. That's right. Please, yes. Not high tech, but we do have something for a visual.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Scrippa. I'm a resident of the town of Cicero. I live here at 6248 Addison Loomis. And I have a small local real estate.
It's up there.
Where it's not on the live stream. Is the mic picking up the? No. Okay, all right, we need to fix that too.
If you borrow mine, it's wicked loud today. I'll turn the sound up. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, and I own and operate a small real estate brokerage firm up in Brewerton.
When you get a second, you're gonna have to get a little closer to the microphone.
Okay. Yep. How's that? Is that better?
Can you check it out?
And hold it.
Sure.
There you go.
Okay.
Game show host style.
All right. Joe Scrippa, resident of the town of Cicero, right here nearby. I own and operate a small real estate brokerage firm up in Brewerton, just off the Brewerton exit, next to the what used to be the Brewerton Diner, across from Nice and Easy. The site that we are presenting to tonight is 9461 Brewerton Road, which is directly behind the former Bear Creek Restaurant, if everybody knows where that is. It's a 13-lot subdivision. Being in the real estate brokerage business, this site is currently zoned commercial, and we're going to be looking for a zone change to residential. We would like to develop it into 13 lots, smaller style homes, 1,200 to 1,800 square feet. Based on the homes that we sell through our office, approximately 200 to 300 homes a year. We believe that this is a high demand product, and it's a really nice, convenient location, close to 81, straight shot down Route 11 for shopping or anything like that. Home style will be patio style, and Cape Cod. There'll be a version that looks like Cape Cod style with an upstairs, so it can be a single level home or have an upstairs. At this point, I'll turn it over to Scott Freeman.
Thank you. Scott Freeman, my address 7432 Liverpool, Donegal Way, Liverpool, New York. Keplinger Freeman Associates, we're landscape architects and site planners, and also have Christian Freeman with me from our office. He's going to help take us through some of the points here. Also on our design team and not present is our engineer Rudy Zona, RZ Engineering. Our architect in architects, Joe Brano. He's at 2 golf outings. I don't know how he picked today, but that's where he is. I don't know where he's playing. He's playing somewhere. But like Joe said, we put this plan together. We had an informational meeting with Bill and Steve Procopio, give us a little bit of direction. So we took their direction and we listened to most of it, and we kind of changed a few things up a little bit. You'll hear throughout our presentation. But I guess the current site is zoned commercial, and I guess in the informational packets, we have a location plan, and everything to the west and north of the site is in fact residential. The site is off Route 11 behind commercial properties along Route 11. So we thought this would be a good candidate for a residential development. We did look at putting a commercial development site up there, but the reality is right now with the economy, there's a really good demand for housing, and having conversations with our architect, there's a really good demand for single floor living. So just I want to expand a little bit on the architecture. Architect was able to be here, but these are going to be 1,200 to 1,800 square foot units. Joe Scrippa is still working out who would build them, but 1,200 to 1,800 square feet. one builder. We haven't decided on a builder, you know, if the project were to go ahead. We're thinking 3 units, so it wouldn't be 13 different builders. This isn't a parade home site. We want to create a neighborhood that where all the houses complement each other. So we're looking at three housing types, one neighborhood. Another thing we think that's important in small neighborhoods is they have a strong identity. So each house would have its own tree. The developer would have each residence would have its own mailbox. They would all be the same mailbox, the same light pole. This is where we deviate from our meeting. Originally, we were looking at a private drive and an HOA, and after looking at the economics of that, we got a preliminary estimate on what it would take to construct a public road, and that's where we kind of changed our approach. So we're looking to work with the town of Cicero engineer and construct a public road within that cul-de-sac. And that would enable us to get water and sanitary, which we just received our surveys. It's located right there on Route 11. We haven't gotten into the design yet, but we just think that's the better way to go. What we're asking for is consideration for zone change, which is currently commercial, and we're thinking of PUD. And with PUD, there's a lot of back and forth between the design team and you, the board. And just as a point of reference, you look at the code book, and there's all kinds of R options. But just as a starting point, I think this, in that zone data chart, I don't want to go through everything, but these lots are very close to the R10 zoning designation. In terms of lot area, they all exceed R10. So that's good. It's okay, it's R10. So they're all well over 9,800 square feet. And then they're well over 10,000 square feet. In terms of lot frontage, there's a 70-foot build to line. Ours are at 50, 55. They're a little less. But if you look at the back of the properties, they're well beyond 70. So there's what's in the code book, and then there's the constructed reality of our design plan. So we feel there's a lot of green space here. So we're asking to work with you on consideration of this to a R10. So that's the zoning, that's the architecture. I was going to have Christian go through the nuts and bolts before we get into some Q&A, which we'd love to have some feedback and some dialogue, but I want to give you a little more nuts and bolts on this. Christian studied it.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for your time, Steve. If you're on this meeting, just want to say thank you for answering all my questions as I call time and again. I appreciate it. Just to refresh, the site is 6.13 acres. It's sizable lot, as you can tell. The layout of it is interesting, which is why we struggled and looked around at exactly how we're going to place our houses and make this work and work in a way that is harmonious. In terms of what we have currently, we have the survey information, full survey. It's all done. All utilities are flagged, and we're going to have to do some coordination if we move forward. The first would be we'd have to work with Aqua, obviously, to connect to water, discuss locations for the water supply hydrants. As you can see, we show just a preliminary one of those 2 bending lines that go towards the center of the cul-de-sac. That's a water line we've just sort of proposed for now. This all needs to be coordinated, but we're trying to think it through now. And then speaking of the cul-de-sac, we've designed that per standards. So it's not per code. You can't have a road that's too long going into the cul-de-sac. We're right on the edge there. We meet code. We're under code by 20 feet, 500 or so. So we meet that. All the layout of the lots is per code. And again, as my father was saying, the R10 is what we aim for. Only one of the lots, the one to the left, the littlest lot, is under that 9,800 that's required for R10. So we're really knocking on the door there for the R10. He talked about the site design. In terms of disturbance, let's talk about the topography really quick. The topography for the site is incredibly favorable for what we're proposing. It's almost tailor-made. You can see there's sort of 2 swales going towards our detention in the plan north and plan southeast, those 2 big blobs there. That's good for us in terms of disturbance. Since the site is sizable and we're trying to fill it with lots, we would be up to around 5.25 acres of disturbance of the 6.13. However, because the topography is favorable, I think that the level of disturbance would be smaller in terms of vertical disturbance. We would need to do a notice of intent for that and get a stormwater permit. Moving along in terms of our coordinations, we're accessing off Route 11, which would require us to talk to Jeff Deep at the DOT, get his approvals. We worked with him a lot in the past and currently in a lot of projects. And then in terms of other positives of the site, no floodplains, and we checked the EAF wetland mapper, and no wetlands there as well.
Like open up
Yeah.
to questions. We
Do
just.
you have any questions?
Just for the residents' information, some of the items that were discussed and kind of reviewed, streetlights. A lot of times when developments are put in, the streetlights aren't put in, right away, they come on later, which sometimes causes a little bit of consternation. So that was one item we discussed. And we talked about the roads. That's good because this would make sure that they're built to the standards.
Absolutely.
It's a private road, it wouldn't be. So that was an item we wanted to make sure in the long run, that was an issue that was addressed. We also talked about trash and brush. Okay, very popular subject, especially this year, it's been interesting. If it was a private operation, then you wouldn't be getting trash and brush because you'd be doing it yourself. This way, if your individual homes, you have that taken care of. And another item that got a lot of attention, at least on my part, was if it was an association, when you talk about that huge number of homes, so you've gotten rid of that as an issue.
Yeah, mathematically, it doesn't pan out. And we've Joe's done a quick market study with other neighborhoods, and our target users, resident would be an empty nester, a small starter family. So these are the type of neighborhoods where you see the lawn maintenance trucks there. I mean, we'll be supporting the local economy.
So those were some of the issues that commonly come up, and the chairman, kindly decided to address those at the get-go. So that's all. Open up to any of the board members have any questions or comments.
I assume these are going to be built to order.
You want?
I figured that wasn't a question for you guys.
Yeah, well, depending on our approval process and timing to be able to market it, I mean, we would start marketing right away. I feel that if we were marketing right now, we would be selling through them quite rapid.
Yeah.
They will be built to order. I would say we could potentially have 1 to 2 spec at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question, I did just a quick search. Is there a water district easement that runs through this property?
Yeah, to speak to that.
Yeah, yes, there is. Yes, there is. I wish I had that plan.
That's something that we would, it's on the survey. It's something we'd have to negotiate.
It's part of our coordination.
We've negotiated relocating those through other sites. It's not a water line.
Right, it's a district, right.
So we could show that line on the plan. That would be something coordinated when we got to engineering. It's on our list.
Okay, well, I'm sure the planning board will vet all that out when it gets to them anyway. So, thank you.
Mr. Crowley, is there some section of the town code that requires subdivision street lights?
Yeah. Streetlights? Yeah, so that's really a function of subdivision.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's this.
Yeah, it's just sort of-
That requires that. I think, yes. It's-
Sometimes
you had to add them neighborhoods that were supposed to have that. didn't.
Which is part of,
Yes.
I guess just for clarification, I mean, we're willing to work with whatever we come up with, but initially, we're just trying to get continuity when we went from a private road to a public road. We wanted each house would have an 8-foot residential light pole to create uniformity within a neighborhood. If there's a lighting district requirement, to municipal standards to be coordinated with a lighting district, we'd have to talk about it and factor that in. So we understand we're in the informational stage, but our intent today is to get that standard mailbox, standard light, and have three units to choose from. So, not have 13 of the same and not have 13 different. Get some, my architect who's out playing golf, he'd be able to come in here and nail it with what it would look like. But there's just our design firm, I can tell you, 3 years ago, we had maybe a couple of subdivisions. Right now, a lot of people are calling up and half the time I have to tell them their site doesn't work, but personally, this site is it fits a small neighborhood very well, and I think it would fit into your master plan quite well to give us a chance to. Let's see, Joe's does some quality work. He doesn't just throw it down and walk away. I don't know if you've seen the cafe Cubao on Sweetheart Corners. Again, it's just something that was empty. We made it into something. We're taking a shot at one here in Cicero too. But, so that's
I think the, talking about the lighting, comes to mind at the lake, what do they call it, at the lake in Burton,
okay.
that when it was built, it had personal, a light for each home, and they came in and with a petition, request lighting. So I think now, and I think the planning board also has it on their agenda, one of the questions you ask anyway, so that if a lighting district is necessary for it, that it would be taken care of sooner than later.
Yeah, the reason why I'm hearing so much about this is because in the last few years, we've had a lot of petitions, a lot of discussion. That's why we're just trying to get out there, yeah, because there were neighborhoods that were in a lighting district and paying taxes for lights they didn't have. There's been a lot of strange things that have happened with streetlights. That's why we're all thinking about it, because it just keeps coming up over and over.
Oh, if it's a requirement, we're certainly.
Yeah, no, I get it.
If we build a town road, we're gonna work with Mark Parrish and.
No, I understand. So you probably don't get much about streetlights normally. That's why you're here. It's been an issue.
Oh, it's with subdivision, it's a drainage district, it's a lighting district.
Yeah.
Right.
Comply, so we understand.
Nancy and Mike, do you have any questions?
Yes, do you have a price point for these homes?
The starting price will be $289, and $289, I would suspect that we range up to $359, maybe $370.
It's just a little more on the architecture. It's a first floor, primarily your 12,000 square feet unit would be 2 bedrooms. And then, maybe if that empty nester where the boomerang kid comes home, it has the option to get the 3rd bedroom upstairs. And then the opportunity with this site is because of the pie-shaped lots in the back, you can get a wider living room or master bathroom, so that, going upstairs, you go from 1,200 to 1,400 square feet. And because of the opportunity of the backyards, you can get that square footage up to 1,800, but we're not building 3,500 square foot homes. That's not the audience here. The audience here is a smaller patio home. And I don't know if you travel much on Morgan Road towards 31, the Hamlet. Eldon Homes did a very nice job with the craftsman style homes. That's the direction we're going. We have different better architect.
It's not a question, but it's more of a comment. It's kind of hard to talk this way, but I'll make it shorter. Understand the housing market skyrocketing and gonna come over, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people that are in my age group that can't really buy homes. Like, it'd just be awesome if we could get more affordable homes in the town. That's just a comment, nothing about the project at all.
What's an affordable price point? Because we do other projects.
For people that are their first home, $289. Oh my gosh, that's not the money that people I know make. That's certainly not. You kind of put it that way a little bit, and I'm like, that's not this whole price. Right? When I first saw it, I go, oh yes, very, very. Again, it's nothing against your project. And we don't. In Cicero, at least, we don't have a lot of homes. We don't have a lot of homes for people that are just starting out. They leave. They go other places. They go to Clay, because Clay has a bunch. Yeah, it's nothing negative. Like, I'm not trying to statement. I wish we'd see more of that.
Today's mortgage rate, though, it's under $2,000 a month.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I have friends that can't afford that still.
Yeah.
That comment to me is kind of just, I live in the real world. I'm not saying you don't. I'm not trying to be mean. A lot of my friends have left this year because they can't find homes that are affordable. And I know the market, I understand. But there's just, here in Cicero, we have, Judy, how many neighborhoods do you have with townhomes? It's not many. Or affordable. every project becomes a pretty difficult. Who are you on? It's like,
Yeah, no, I see your point, but on the other, I look at the glass half full. There's a lot of people, my age and older where their kids leave and they're in a 3,000 square foot house and they have nowhere to go. They have limited opportunity, limited places to go, but here's an opportunity where you can downsize.
nothing
that's-
negative.
that's- Yeah, that's why I misspoke a little bit on that.
Next point.
Just one more comment. I'm really happy to see something potentially coming to that part of our town. Instead of all, on Lake Shore Road, and where all this heavy traffic is. Really glad to see something up north a little bit. It's good for Brewerton and it's good for our traffic and it's great for Route 11 in that section.
My office has been in Virgin for 5 years. Absolutely falling over. It's a great place. It's close.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about
I'm
the
not- I'm
the
not-
31
I'm not trying to cut
traffic.
you off, but we're kind of off of the first part, so you're gonna have a lot of opportunities to talk about this in the planning board. And so.
Can I ask one more question? I'd like to ask one more quick. Are you basing your price right now on the situation we have with the materials?
It'll be based on the square footage of the home. The homes will be 1,200 to 1,800 square
Right,
feet.
but-
So it's just the price range. Somewhat, there is an impact right now that we have to project.
I know that, yes, that's why I asked.
It's 289, it's not high right now, what they bought it last year. That's a lot of money. It's a lot.
Thank you, I'm sure you'll get a lot of
Thank you.
questions. when you get the planning board, so
Thank you.
Okay, next item, discussion, and so the building ready, the board members have any items they'd like to.
One, I spoke with Lisa in regards to I was opening several things within town. I asked her if she could kind of give us a rundown on the senior center, the canteen, and other areas so that, what are our openings, what's happening now?
Okay, thanks. Well, we have been open for quite some time for most of the programs. The senior center has been open since the beginning of October, but all through the pandemic, we were open every day, 5 days a week, serving lunches. But anyway, now that things have opened up a little bit more, the newest thing that we just started this week, they're back able to play cards. But we have probably 5 or 6 different groups, exercise, knitting, sewing, board games, movie groups, all that kind of stuff. So they're pretty much back to normal. The only thing that we really haven't ventured into as far as the seniors go are the bus trips and food events. They're still not allowed to do luncheons or things like that. We're improving to the center. As far as the canteen has been open ever since the start of the school year. What's the big drastic change has been the number of attendance. When kids were only going 1 or 2 days a week, we obviously were seeing a lot fewer kids and we were making contact with them through social media. That has now kind of declined and now it's back to in person. They're averaging, they said this the last couple of weeks, probably 20 to 25 kids on a given day. We had 80 unduplicated youth last week, which is like huge, like we're back full force. So that's great. We started signups 2 weeks ago for the summer programs for the canteen, and every single one of the trips have filled. So that's great. And we were able to accommodate more kids now that several of them have got vaccinated. So that's good. As far as our programs through the Parks Department, we've been doing programs right through the spring and winter. We just had to get a lot more creative. We did Operation Egg Drop, and we've done a lot of craft projects. And but a lot of the leagues, we were able to do a basketball group during the winter. The Lady Stars program. We did a memorial historical walk this past weekend in Brewerton at the cemetery. That was a huge success. We opened up signups a few weeks ago for our summer programs, and we added the 6 weeks for our summer camp. 4 of the weeks are full, and we only have a few spots left for weeks 1 and 2. So people are really anxious to get out and involved in the programs. You know, everything's gearing up. We've added some programs last year for during the pandemic, things that we could do more things that we could do outside. And we're continuing them and also bringing back everything that we weren't able to do last year. So check out our website. Parks Department website is Parks and Rec at ciceronewyork.net, and you can sign up. But that's my quick update. If anyone has any questions, I brought some flyers for the summer. Oh yeah, we have paddleboard, yoga, belly dancing. Oh, the big thing is the summer concerts. That was something that didn't get funded in the budget this year. It was removed, but we were able to get a grant, and also both of the local libraries gave us money to sponsor a concert, so we are still holding 6 concerts this summer, which is awesome. We'll be doing 4 of them at Riverfront and 2 of them at Williams Beach on Thursday nights.
Hey, Teresa. I've been getting a lot of people asking for pickleball.
Oh, pickleball is huge. I didn't bring that up, but yeah, we have 3 nights where you can go in and get instruction, but it's really big. We have a group, in fact, we're just ordering this week a storage container to keep out at Skyway Park for their equipment. Yeah, I was over there yesterday morning meeting. We have a big project starting there for the parking lot through the SAM grant, and I can't tell you how many players were coming in and using it. So, yeah, it's very popular.
I heard a question because
Pickleball is a game played on a tennis court.
it's like ping pong, but you're using.
Use a racket.
Yeah.
And you better be in very good shape.
It's like the size of a ping pong paddle and the ball is.
You can be run ragged in moments.
They were intense. I was watching people that came out in like these knee wraps, and they were really
Very high shot and go.
Terry, I'd like to congratulate.
There's a pickleball association, so they take turns with who comes in on the nights that's open to the public. But we have a group, the Pickleball CNY Pickleball Association, where they have a website and you can go on and make reservations. And our site, Skyway, is one of them. But there's several courts over in Clay and so forth. But yeah, they're very vocal that they want us to build some designated pickleball.
Sticks.
Yeah, we really do have to look.
One of the good things of having that building refurbished where you're at is the power was upgraded thanks to a couple of our volunteers here in the middle of the room. And we got the power upgraded because that was an issue. We couldn't have like a lot of things. So we're looking forward to that being one of the great enhancements that was done out of the street. So.
Terry, I want to congratulate you on picking up and doing a fantastic job on our Parks and Rec, which is a huge, obvious undertaking. And you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We love our new site.
Okay, I did have one public input item. I probably not. I'll put it in because it was an item that was on the agenda earlier that didn't have a second, so we didn't have any action on it. So that's something in there. Okay, public input. Hold
Hello, Phil. Everybody's excited. Right. My name is Bill Hoteling, live at 6320 Matilda Gage. I'm glad to see it's open. This is wonderful. I do have a question, but you did answer it. I guess that wasn't approved there. The corner farmstead, am I understanding that correctly tonight? It wasn't approved? Yeah. I'm glad to hear that because, to be honest with you, I really think it's a good project, but I don't think you can do anything without having people talk to you. The only time I saw a public hearing was on that thing, and I had no recourse. The only people you heard from were Mr. Bragman, his spokesperson, and the people that owned the property. That's that. And again, we keep, I'll use your words, heavy traffic, but we don't address the infrastructure. If these projects are so good for these developers, I think they should have to come up with a little piece of the action to rectify the traffic situation. Town of DeWitt made Wegmans do it. Town of Clay made Wegmans do it. Granted, these people aren't Wegmans. I understand that. But there has to be, it goes back to one of the things I said a year and a half ago or whatever time it was I was here. Comprehensive master plan. We keep putting Band-Aids on things. Thank God, Jonathan is on top of things. And we keep putting Band-Aids on it to fix problems that if we had a comprehensive master plan, we would be in control, or the town, you.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, I asked that question, and it had been 17 years from when I asked that question. And it still hasn't been done.
Can I like.
I know it's expensive.
Wait, let me interrupt, please. We have approved, and we are now in process, and
Okay.
our RFP has been sent out,
Perfect.
and we are going to start to develop a comprehensive plan for the town of Cicero.
Great.
Excellent.
I
Hopefully next week, our bids will be in.
Perfect.
And we are going to do it.
Good.
Public's gonna be involved. It's gonna be, by a professional.
Well, it has to be done right.
Well, absolutely, and it's going to be a long process, but.
Yeah.
But the residents will be involved, so.
Good. All right.
I'd like to.
Okay. That's a positive thing. The other thing, I've said it before, I'm going to continue to say it. I still think it's ludicrous that we have the developers pay for traffic studies. They use the same people. They come up with the same answers. For 17 years, I've yet to see one traffic study have a negative impact on the traffic. Yeah.
Bus garage.
Oh, all right. I read one. But was that really the traffic that was the cause of it?
There's so many.
There were so many problems with it. I think the town should do the traffic studies in secret, so these people don't know who they are. Because I can sit here and I've heard people say they're professional engineers and they're this and that, but you're cutting off the hand that feeds you if you say no.
What is the traffic, Mr. Jimmy? For a project like the Horner Farm Mall. Give me a range. It doesn't have to be 2 to 5,000.
3 to 5. I think the town should pay for it, get it done, and make the developer pay the town back, regardless of whether it's approved or not approved.
Put it in their site plan.
Because it just doesn't make sense to me. Just doesn't make sense that in 17 years, traffic, or 19 years now, traffic hasn't changed. We all know that's not. I compliment you guys on doing the right thing for this job. I don't know anything about them. But it goes back to something I said a long time ago when, they send out, it was under the previous administration, and it was like talking to the wall, Mr. Vineski. When there is a project, how people are notified before, like I go back to where I live in the pastures, there's 300 homes in there. 5 people got notified about a possible change at the Nice and Easy in there. I think doing the right thing is to notify people within, say, a quarter of a mile or X number of, you come up with some type of figure. But to notify people, 5 people, just like I'm sure the thing down on Lake Shore Road there. I bet you, I don't know how many people live in those developments that surround it, but I bet you it was probably less than 25 people that probably got a notice. I mean, this is our town. We look for you people to represent us. And by not having that voice and not knowing about this, unless you're in and out of this little thing or calling or bugging people, it's troubling. You know, to where I look for you people to let us know when there's a situation, good or bad.
I agree
And-
about the notice. And that's
Yeah, I know
something
you did. I know we
something
talked about it.
discussed, you know, and I think that COVID interrupted.
Yeah, I understand.
Difficulty is, you know, obviously the current policy is clearly inadequate.
Oh.
The difficulty is, you know, certainly, you know, some try to maximize coverage. Certainly, it's either number of homes, number of lots, linear distance, but you know, when you look at something like there was a zone change on Martin Road or whatever to allow a couple of multifamily townhomes. It's people down the street are affected, people immediately behind, so it's difficult, and I've, you know, worked on it past, started again, to craft something that covers the maximum number. It's not gonna be perfect.
No,
but
you're never gonna please
simple
everybody.
as
You're never gonna,
linear
no.
distance, because people down the street might be affected more than, like, literally on the same street.
Sure,
but
sure.
Might be affected more than. people
Absolutely.
who live a couple lots
I
away.
agree.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's something
Okay.
we should have a discussion.
And the last thing I want to say is just that I listened to this discussion about the thing for this police officer. Again, I don't know who he is, don't know anything about him, whether it's right or wrong or anything. But we're all up in arms about this benefit thing. Meanwhile, yes, you weren't here, it was the previous administration. In the cloak of darkness, in the 23rd and a half hour of the day, they sneak through this thing about people who accepted a position, knowing what the requirement, what was available to them, and then we change it at the end. I still think it's wrong. That's all I'm gonna say. But yet you had a 20-minute discussion about this cop, which doesn't make any sense. Thank you very much.
It's great to be back. I'm not going to give you everything that I had in my packet here today because of the hour. I'm just going to kind of give you a brief discussion of what I'm going to bring up in the next couple of months. Number one, the highway garage project. I've got a lot of financial information that maybe you don't know about that project, starting with the original estimate, the amount of bonding money that was decided we'd put out, what that was gonna cost, what it cost because we had a delay in when we were gonna put the bids out. I think, I know, Jonathan, you asked me some questions about that. I have that stuff available. We'll not discuss it tonight, but because of that, a couple of big pieces were not able to be completed. One was the lean-to section, which is to protect our equipment stuff that would normally sit out under the weather. This is under a roof area, fire protected and lighting. Because we got a grant to do the salt, when we decided to do the salt shed, we had to take money out of the project and build the salt shed. We had no choice. But we also at the same time put in a grant. We got the grant, over $300,000. Part of that money could be used to do the lean-to section. The other piece that we did not do, that is a major item, that the highway guys have taken care of it, is we had a shed operation like what we had out here for the storage of the salt boxes when they come off the trucks in the summertime. That was not able to be done, but the guys have taken care of that with, you know, their 6 cents, so that's okay. Number two, we need to be talking about the courts. We are still in absolute non-compliance for our courts. If any of you want to come and sit and listen at one of our courts, I've done it a couple of times before. We did a space study on what we needed for them. It's atrocious, and we in fact included, when we were in negotiations to sell the property out back, we added another 75 feet to that facility. So where the fence right now has a big loopy doop in it, that is not all Niagara Mohawk's land. Where the fence starts over on the south side, comes along, heads towards the towers, that fence would go all the way to the towers. So there's a big chunk of land there. And the reason we did that was because we had a plan to do a separate building and we had a number of plans to have the courthouse be attached to this building. So there's a lot of pre-engineering and stuff that's been done for layouts, but we got to talk about that in the future. I know there's some discussion about continuing the media display for people that can't get to the meetings. I think that's a great idea. From what I understand, it's the special cameras that we need. Well, if we need a camera that looks at you guys and a camera that looks at the big mouth that's standing here, then that's fine, but that's the only expense that we really have with that. So we got to come at that. And the last thing is we talked about contracts. It's about time we get our contracts back on the web. They were on the web, and we had a vendor that we hired that did not want their contract on the web. So rather than take that contract off the web, we took them all off. Now, we want open government. We certainly haven't had open government in, a year and a half, and it's not your fault. It's the good old COVID guy. But hopefully, we have learned, at least from the planning board, it makes a lot of sense to, in fact, have that information of our meetings be online, not only for the meeting, but the people that go back and look at the meeting at another time. We need to do that. And so I know our chairman of the planning board is hopeful that we will continue to do that. So those are some of the issues that Don Snyder's back. I'll give you some good news. I'm moving, but the bad news for the town is I'm still going to be in the town of Cicero. I am not moving. I'm moving from a 2,600 square foot house to an apartment. I love it. I don't have to cut the grass. I don't have to worry about the door that doesn't work. And I can get in my RV with my wife and we can head out of town. And Don won't have to worry about, and Val, keeping up on my house.
Mr. Snyder, I just want to make one comment about the highway garage. This is not all. I find it incredibly disappointing and disheartening. Public was told what the cost highway garage would be based on. And that's not the actual cost. Because we're above that.
There was only one person
I know.
that said the building was going to cost $9.9.
Understand.
And I don't blame him. He may have had real good insight that may be all that the public was going to approve, but
My
that
point
still is
saying
not.
this is not to direct blame and say what someone did or
Right.
didn't know or didn't intend.
Yep.
9.9, 9.8, 9.98.
Yeah. Well, but part of that, Jonathan, and we can move that later. Part of that was because we had the delay. We very rightly had a vote, which took time. And there are the 1.4 that we did spend out of our regular budget, 700,000 2 years in a row, was to make up for what happened that nobody had control over.
Sure.
Most of it, most. How do you?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm not sure if we're gonna bring this down. Hey, it's nice to see everybody up there instead of the Brady Bunch thing that we were watching on the closed circuit. Live color, no less. 300 plus days, I think, the people in this town didn't have an opportunity to come in here. Now we do. I think it was Tip O'Neill with Ronald Reagan that said all politics is local. And that's important here because even tonight's meeting, with some of the exchange that wasn't all as pleasant as you'd like, you were still doing the business of the people of this town. And that's much appreciated. One thing I would also comment on with the town highway department. Part of the problem was we have 5 elected members of the board, but only one person basically knew what was going on. If they had any information with numbers that you didn't know about, they had an obligation to share that with you. And that didn't happen. And I hope that doesn't happen again in the future. So one thing I would also ask, having been back about 2 weeks, driving through the town, I come up Route 11, it looks a mess. I know we're not responsible for sweeping the roads cleaning the sidewalks on Route 11. That would be Onondaga East, but someone's got to reach out to them. I'll call Mr. Hanson, but it's 5 months into the year. We're going to be celebrating Memorial Day. We need to clean this town up. It may not be brand new, but it can look as nice as we can make. Thanks.
Yeah, just to make sure that, we'll clear on a couple things. The town clerk's office has been busy. I can't remember how many hundreds, but basically how many hundreds of marriage licenses, and dog licenses, and like that. I mean, the clerk's office has been open every day. The comptroller's office has been open every day. So engineer, parks, receiver, zoning. We have not had free reign. We had an appointment system, and as I think I mentioned some other folks in the assessor's office, they started a operation for appointments. They actually, the residents are asking for it and saying, we're going to be able to do that next year. What's happening was they would come in and be doing a business with the construction company. It was social. And frankly, they didn't like it where the neighbor was slurring other business. So this way they can sit out in the car, they get called in one at a time, and we go to the assessor's office and take it with a person in there. So that's been sort of privacy for them. The tax receiver's office started working on the Dropbox. Okay, it was picked up from the receiver's deputy, and I started checking around on it, and a couple other municipalities around here are using it. And it's been a great innovation. If you're an early to work person and you can't drop off things, it's not how you literally start coming out here, early Dropbox, and the receiver gets it, or the comptroller gets whatever it is. So we've actually been able to expand those. Steve, in his operation, was having meetings here. So that in this room. So that's what. Again, I'm not going to try to get everybody else. So I apologize if I miss something. The staff has been absolutely outstanding to make it work. They have a challenge a bit for me, and that is I'm going to keep you safe, but at the same time, you're going to have to get your job done, right? And you're going to have to be innovative, and it can't be any, well, it's not my job. Everybody's job is everybody's job in every way. So every single department did a fantastic job. So we kind of did a little bit of fast track in getting people to use the email more, use the phone more, use mail, get innovative with it, walk up window. And I think some of those things are going to stick. They've been innovative minutes. And we're going to keep a couple of those things, so we'll probably go back to the old. I think we're going to have a good mesh. Basically, new technology and new ways of doing business. But we probably wouldn't have come across. We didn't have a need to come. So again, I have to repeat myself again. I apologize for repeating myself. All the fantastic hard work that all the staff has done over the last 2 months has been there to make sure that all the services are being provided to the residents. So with these folks here and not for So the other items have done. I'll move to adjourn, and we'll see you in a couple weeks to get rid of the date for that. Second. All in favor?
No, I was seconding your move.
Thank you very much. We put out the recording of that, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.